The following program contains discussion of EN server story content, which will contain some spoilers. Viewer discretion is advised. It is that time of year again, where we willingly accept the benevolent monitoring of our favorite red-cloaked immortal in the hopes that he will find us favorable enough to allow either our hearts or our homes to be warmed. Which of his gifts we receive is determined, of course, by the most sacred of texts, the Naughty or Nice list, which I just so happen to have received a copy of. Well, not the whole list, but I did get my hands on the chunk that lists all of our favorite Twisted Wonderland boys. So let's see who's getting gifts and who's getting coal. First up, we have Ramshackle listed with Grim, who is on the Naughty list. While Grim has grown on me as a character, you gotta admit that he's still a stinker. This guy claims to be taking care of the prefect, but realistically, he's just a catalyst for chaos. He steals others' food and eats pretty much whatever, even dirt off the ground, which is not only a crime against the sanctity of mealtime, but could also be considered gluttony, which is very naughty indeed. Sure, he's a cute little dire beast and all, but cute doesn't sway Santa, so unfortunately Grim is getting coal. Up next, we have Hearts the Bull, with Riddle topping the list and receiving a nice sticker. Riddle did overblot at the beginning of the school year, but he has been doing his darndest to improve, albeit in small increments. He genuinely cares about his dorm and his fellows and does his best to help them succeed. He also holds himself accountable and makes up for his past mistakes, provided he can at least recognize them, which is good effort if nothing else. Riddle may still be a bit stubborn, however, he's no longer a tyrant, and I think it's really this positive change that won Riddle a place on the nice list. Now, next up is Ace, and unfortunately, he's a very naughty boy. Ace is having a rough year, but it's not all the universe's fault. He sneaks out at orientation, swipes a piece of tart that's not his to swipe, takes the easy way out of exams with Azul's contract, skips out on school for Playful Land, and not once during any of these events does he have a shred of true remorse. Sure, Ace does try to repent for the tart, so he's got that going for him, but on the whole, Ace doesn't seem to care too much about his mistakes, and given that he continues to make them without any self-reflection, he's made his way onto the naughty list for sure. Deuce, however, has found his way onto the nice list. Now, Deuce is also having a bit of a tough year, but he is trying way harder to better himself than Ace is. Deuce is making great steps towards becoming an honor student, and despite getting caught up in a whole lot of bad situations, does have his moments of self-reflection. Sure, he slips into bad habits every now and again, but you can actively see his efforts, and I think that Santa can too. So Deuce has made it onto the nice list. Next up is Big Brother Trey, sweeping in with his fantastic dental habits and ability to keep Riddle in check. As no surprise that this guy is on the nice list since he is a star team player, and even though he's pretty good as he is also learning and continuing to better himself. He no longer enables Riddle's bad habits, at least not as much as he used to, which is a step in the right direction. His spot on the nice list is well earned. Now, I can't think of why Cater would be put on the naughty list, so onto the nice list he goes. Cater is a bundle of sunshine who does his best to make folks smile, even if his flirty nature can be a little much. He isn't all giggles either and does have some good insights during serious moments. Perhaps you could count his bad magicam habit as something naughty, but I think on the whole Cater deserves a spot on the nice list, given all of the other good that he does throughout the year. Moving on from Heartslable into Savannah Claw, we have Leona up first, who is firmly on the naughty list. Leona is a decent leader who does secretly care about himself and others, however, he does let things go a bit far before intervening. While that's not the worst sin imaginable, he does skip his classes regularly and sleeps the day away, and that makes him the poster child for sloth. Sure, he can do things and do them well, but he doesn't really apply himself, and that leads to some less than stellar situations. He's not really bettering himself as much either after his overblot, at least as far as I and Santa can tell, and he kinda makes Ruggie do pretty much everything for him, which is not very nice at all. Ruggie, for his part, is also on the naughty list. This boy is the embodiment of swiper swiping, as he's got the stickiest fingers of anyone at the school, and stealing is a very naughty thing indeed. On top of that, Ruggie will take on any job, including those less savory ones, so long as he gets something out of it. And to top everything else off, he steals Grimm's sandwich, one of the highest caliber food crimes. So how could such an individual be labeled as nice? This isn't to say that he has no good qualities, but he certainly doesn't mind his bad ones. So onto the naughty list he goes. Now, Jack is on the nice list, since Jack has his head on straight, or at least mostly straight, and he plays by the rules, though they may be a bit skewed by his personal perspective. He is a dedicated, no-nonsense fellow who keeps our brain cell trio in check to a degree. His conscience gets the better of him during book 2, he's got our back in book 3, and even beyond that, he's a very supportive and kind fellow. He's a bit of a goody two-shoes, which lands him a solid spot on the nice list. Next up, in Octave and Now, we have Naughty, Naughtier, and Naughtiest. I don't know how anyone could make a case for any of these three to end up on the nice list. Azul literally forces free labor out of folks with the willing help of Jade and Floyd. Jade casually collects blackmail material on all of their fellow schoolmates, among some other unsavory things. And Floyd is always, in every situation, a menace. The three of them are constantly scheming, constantly trying to get a leg up, and none of them care about the morality of how they're doing those things. They have so much dirt on so many people that I'm surprised they don't have anything on Santa. That said, Azul is working on himself a little, and that is worth mentioning. However, Floyd and Jade do everything for their own personal enjoyment without a care in the world or regard for the moral order of the universe. In fact, these two do things on purpose just to upset folks. Floyd torments Riddle for fun, Jade gives the ghost bride a poisoned flower just to see what would happen, and the two of them during Beans Day were entirely out for themselves. Their behaviors cannot be condoned, even with the threat of them doxing Santa. So Azul, Jade, and Floyd are all getting put on the naughty list. Shame, shame. In Scarabia, though, we have Kalim, and Kalim is on the nice list. I don't think Kalim could make the naughty list if he tried. Sure, he's a bit oblivious and not the best student, but he's so sunny in so many other ways and does his darndest to make sure his dorm mates are happy. After book 4, we also see that Kalim is now trying to not be so oblivious, so he gets points for effort there. He just wants to be friends with everyone and is always willing to throw a party. In fact, I think he'd probably prepare a parade or some other big event in anticipation of Santa coming to town. And I, for one, think that might win him some more points with the big guy. So on to the nice list he goes. Now, unfortunately, Jamil, on the other hand, is on the naughty list. Now, while Jamil runs the dorm well and keeps Kalim in check, he is still a schemer who doesn't seem to truly care about others. Even after his coup attempt, he hasn't seemed to change very much, and while his situation is a bit unique, I do have to agree with Leona's callouts in Chapter 6. There are things you can't change, but there are also things that you can change, and Jamil doesn't seem to be figuring that out very well, at least currently. Also, technically, since Jamil can get all A's but chooses not to because of Kalim, he is, in a way, lying, and lying is a very naughty thing, so on to the naughty list he goes. Moving over to Pomfiore, we have Vil up first, and Vil, for his part, is on the nice list. Vil cares for his dorm, his peers, and himself super well, and while folks may not always appreciate his preening, he does his best to make sure his advice is still in their best interests. He's only truly hard on folks when the situation also involves his image, so he's not a tyrant in the same way that Riddle once was. On the whole, Vil's a pretty reasonable guy with a thriving professional and academic career. Kind is not exactly the word I would use for him, but his actions are genuinely thought out well and are not usually at the expense of others, which would get him onto the nice list. However, it would not have been enough to counteract his attempted unaliving of Nej, had he also not saved the whole world. So all in all, Vil did end up on the nice list, however he was quite close to getting knocked over to naughty. Now, Epel, on the other hand, is also in the nice list. Epel's been on a journey of self-discovery ever since the school year began, and I think he's been having a great time overall. Sure, he and Riddle do not see eye to eye, and sometimes he slips up with either his accent or his frustration, but at the end of the day, these aren't major naughty activities. In fact, it seems that Epel's grit and determination are actually what gave him points for the nice list. Even in dire circumstances, Epel is still pretty conscious of his actions and how they affect others. Even though he disobeys Riddle during the Glorious Masquerade, a generically naughty thing to do, Epel's actions do directly save Riddle and his magic, which turns this encounter into a nice one instead. On the whole, Epel is a good lad, so on to the nice list he goes. Unsurprisingly, Rook is also on the nice list. Elf on the Shelf is no match for this hunter, and if Rook really wanted to, he could follow that little fella back to the North Pole, which is terrifying. So Santa has decided to put Rook on the nice list as to not invoke his ire. But his placement isn't all situational. He also saved Nej's life, Vil's life, and technically the whole world's life, so Rook has very much earned his spot on the nice list this year. Moving on to Ignihide, we have Idia up first, and Idia somehow got on the nice list. Idia does have quite a mouth on him, and he says some pretty spicy things that could land him on the naughty list fairly easily. But because he stays in his room the majority of the time and doesn't usually interact with others, this isn't too much of a problem. He doesn't get himself into trouble or start trouble, but he also doesn't really do anything to prevent trouble or to help others. Idia is pretty middle of the road, so from the list's perspective, he's getting labeled as nice. Sure, he did also try to end the world, but that was only because of Shade Ortho's influence, and without it, I firmly believe Idia would never have attempted to take over the world like he did. Sins done as a result of peer pressure are not weighed as heavily, so Idia still gets put on the nice list regardless. Ortho also, perhaps even more surprisingly, is on the nice list as well. You know how Azul didn't have dirt on Santa? You know who could easily access Santa's search history to get dirt on him if he really wanted to? So on to the nice list Ortho goes. Outside of this potential threat, Ortho really is a great kid. He is doing his best to learn how to exist and has a genuinely enthusiastic attitude towards most people and situations. He'll help you out if you're nice too, but he's also not going to let you bully him or his brother either. Yes, he did try to take over the world, kinda, but was that really him, or was he possessed by the spirits of some shades? Ortho doesn't officially, technically, become a real boy until after the events of Book 6, so can he really be held accountable for what had transpired? Apparently Santa doesn't think so, so Ortho has made it onto the nice list. Moving on to Diasomnia, our final dorm, we have Malleus up first, and he is on the nice list. This guy is a wholesome dork. How could he possibly end up on the naughty list? He spends his days appreciating gargoyles and staying out of trouble. So who cares that he doesn't attend meetings or events which require his presence because no one has told him that he doesn't need an explicit invite to attend those things? And does it even matter that he teleported a whole bunch of people to Diasomnia against their will, or that he put the entirety of Sage's Island to sleep just so that he wouldn't lose a dear friend? Putting the world in peril is a naughty thing to do, but his actions aren't done with any true malice, so they're not fully naughty, and given Malleus's other positive qualities, and the massive amount of destructive power he has that could raise the entirety of the North Pole should he feel slighted, have landed Malleus firmly on the nice list. Now, Lilia, on the other hand, was not as fortunate and is on the naughty list. Sure, Lilia's got a lot going for him that could put him on the nice list. He's a dedicated friend, fellow, and father who gives good advice and has the backs of his charges. However, he's also a little bit of a menace. Hopping up behind people to give them a little fright is not very nice. Neither is recommending Riddle put an entire strawberry tart in his soup for Trey, amongst other things. Are his intentions pure? Sure. But are his actions pure? No. Plus, given how heavily food sins have been weighed up until now, Lilia's terrible cooking lands him so squarely on the naughty list that the rest of his positive qualities just couldn't make up the difference. Santa will not be eating any of his cookies, thank you very much. Sebek as well as ended up on the naughty list. Sebek's yowling could probably be heard in the North Pole without any of Santa's sophisticated monitoring equipment, so the jolly fellow is very well aware of Sebek's actions at any given point in time. While he is dedicated to his job and his lord, this dedication that Sebek has can be overbearing and prevent Malleus from possible opportunities, like friendships. Sebek may have good intentions, but his actions are often counterproductive and end up creating more of a mess. He also puts down humans for every little thing and praises Fave for just breathing, which is a very naughty thing indeed. There are some complex reasons for this, I'm sure, but as far as Santa is concerned, this loudmouth coddler is going on the naughty list. Last, but certainly not least, is Silver, who is just such a good kid there's no way he didn't make the nice list. He takes great care of his father, of his lord, and his other duties. He's dedicated and tries his best even when he can't keep his eyes open, and who could fault him for that? Silver tries to see the good in others, give folks the benefit of the doubt, and doesn't smother or coddle Malleus, making Silver a great counterbalance to Sebek. The forest critters love him, most of the folks he encounters are chill with him, and while he is a bit of a space case, he is at least conscious of it and is trying his hardest to change that, so at least to not be a burden to others. Silver is so wholesome, on the whole, that he can't be sorted anywhere other than the nice list. Surprisingly, despite being a school filled with villains, Night Raven College is getting more presents than Cole this year. We have 13 nice folks and only 10 naughty folks. It's not a perfect ratio like Royal Sword Academy, but it's still pretty darn good nonetheless. However, I do wonder if you all agree with Santa's ranking, or if you think some folks should have been placed on a different list. Make your case for your faves in the comment section down below, and if you've enjoyed this video, please let me know with a like, or a comment, or maybe even a subscribe. And if you liked this holiday special, please let me know down below. Now, before you go, I'd just like to remind you that you're amazing and I hope you have a wonderful day.